there. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Church Media Guys Show. And if you want to learn how to use and exploit media and technology so that you can take the gospel to the world, then start now by clicking subscribe and ringing the bell so that you don't miss a thing. With me, as always, is my cohort, the scruffy-looking Justin Nava.
Who you calling scruffy looking, Dave? What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Church Media Guys Show.
Is that where we are?
I love to shout out. I almost called it CTA Live because I was just thinking about it the other day. We used to call it CTA Live,
right?
Or Church Training, whatever. Church Media Guys Show. Shout out to the live viewers, Jordan, Tommy, new live viewer Phyllis, and also Jay from Colorado. What's going on, guys? Glad you're here. And Dave, I'm like literally about to fall asleep because it's cold and rainy in Texas, and
it is.
It's cold and rainy there too, right?
It is. So we're having a day or two of winter.
Iced coffee.
You got iced coffee?
I got an iced coffee. I got a coffee. We ran out of coffee here at the house, so I stopped at McDonald's and got a coffee, and then I brought it home, and I realized I didn't get any creamer or whatever, and I was like, I'm just making iced coffee. It'll last a little bit longer.
Yeah, good. I'm drinking water.
Well, good for you.
Yes, I didn't
would be proud of you.
I didn't even stop and get a Red Bull this morning. That doesn't mean I want this afternoon. So, hey.
So, question of the day for everyone watching. Leave a comment down below. We're talking about sharing your sermons, specifically sermon sharing the right way.
Mm-hmm.
But tell me, question of the day: where do you publish your sermons? Do you put them on your website? Do you put them on YouTube, social media? Where's kind of like your sermons living? Because we're going to be talking about that today. Where do you publish your sermons? And Dave,
yes.
Why is it so important? Why are we spending time? Because we spent 2 weeks on capturing the sermon and making it look good so people actually want to watch it.
Right.
Today we're talking about sharing your sermon and publishing it out. Why is this so important today?
It's really important because if you don't get it out there, no one's going to know it's there. It's kind of like you have a church service that you do every single Sunday, and if you don't let people in the community know that it starts at 10:30 and that the doors are open and they can be there, they won't know to come. You know what I'm saying? It's promotion. It's putting it out so that people can do it, and then reminding them that it's there, and engaging with them around that content. Just like at the end of the service, unless you're in some weird church, and yeah, I said it, weird church, that as soon as you have the benediction and then everyone silently with their heads down and their Bibles open goes walking out, in single file line and disperses and doesn't communicate with each other. What are you doing on Sunday morning when the service is over? If you're like us, you're getting the lights turned out on you. You're standing around talking, you're communicating, you're talking about, maybe something happened during the service, maybe someone's convicted and you're praying with them. You're working through, whatever the deal is. Maybe you're welcoming new people. You're talking about where you're going to go to lunch. You're communicating. You're building a community. Well, you can do all of that online as well, and you can do it around the content that you're creating. It's really cool. It's a neat idea. People do it all the time, and today we're going to talk about how and where.
Yep. When you were
that
saying
was
that,
profound, and all you give me is a yep.
It was good stuff. I have nothing else to add, but it did remind me of something that really stuck with me when I was an intern for our youth pastor. He said one of the things that scares me, like one of the things that keeps him up at night, is this question: if our church closed its doors tomorrow, would anyone notice? Would anyone care?
Right.
Would something stop, right? Would anyone notice? And so that's kind of like, and on the other side of the coin, it's like, if we stopped publishing our sermons online, however we do it, would anyone notice? Would anyone care? And I'm not talking about those 2 or 3 people that every church has that religiously looks to see if there's a sermon online because they're going to email it to 17 family members that won't get read. But I'm talking about like, will people not notice it, or will their day just continue just like normal? And the way we do sermons quite often, a lot of people we see in the chat and in our Facebook group, the way they do it, if they stopped doing it, no one would notice. No one would care. Right. What we want to do is we want to show you how to publish and get your sermons out there, share your sermon out there where people will notice, engage with it, and their lives will be a little bit better because of it. It's not so much them searching you out. It's publishing your sermons in a way that they will casually discover you and actually probably, hopefully crave more.
Yes.
Make sense?
Yes,
so,
it does.
Let's jump into
well,
it.
Hang on. Before we do, I was looking in. We got some more folks that jumped in. we've got Adam McLaughlin popped in, and he says it's 22 in Canada. Here's the deal. So we said, or you said, hey, it's like 30 degrees, it's cold outside, or something like that, and that opened up the floodgate. I swear, I could picture these people standing there in front of a green screen, going, and we got a lower the pressure disturbance coming up, like that. I mean, it's like they're all sharing their weather.
They're all sharing it. It's 23 in Illinois. It's 22 in Canada. It's warm in Alabama.
It's funny. It's
10 degrees in northern Alberta.
It's just like when you're like standing there and you're talking to somebody and you have nothing to talk about, and so you're like, well, it sure is getting hot. It's been rainy, or boy, we could use some rain right about now. That's what.
Now it's gotten to the point where if someone just asked me, "Oh man, what do you think about the weather out there?" I'll just be like, "I don't know. Hey Siri, what's the weather out there?" Uh-oh, everyone's Siri just went off, including my own.
That's funny.
and then Siri will tell them, I'm like, "Yeah, here's the weather outside. Can we talk about something else? What's your view on God?"
Yeah.
let's do big talk. No small talk. All right, let's get into the big talk.
Yes, let's talk big.
We do have the heart out for today.
Okay.
Let's talk about. First, we're going to talk about three things today: where to post, how to get people to watch, and then how to get people engaged with your sermon, right?
Sure.
Because we don't want them just to sit down in a pew and just be there, right? We don't want them just to click to watch. We want them to actually get something out of it, put something into it, and be more fulfilled. And then Dave's got a little bonus that he's going to share with you at the end. So we're going to start with where to post.
Online.
Dave, we got quite a few places here. I think a lot of us, we just post it on YouTube and say, go check the YouTube, but it shouldn't, and it doesn't in there.
Right. No.
Let's actually start with YouTube. So we post our sermons.
Listen,
on YouTube, right?
I tell everybody that they need to be using YouTube, and I mean, they need to be using YouTube for their live stream, as far as I'm concerned. There's other services out there, and I understand that a lot of us, we want everything to be really pretty, and we want to have this beautiful little player on our beautiful little page, and everything to be all nice and rosy and pretty and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, but that's great, but there's nothing happening around any of that stuff. All you're doing is the equivalent of having a nice big screen that people can look at, and then that's it. They'll come back and stand in front of that screen again. A lot of these services that are these platforms, these sermon platforms for hosting, or something like Boxcast or these other, they produce a great product. They have great products. They have great image quality. They have all that sort of stuff. But that is not a communal experience, right? And I think we need to be using the tools that provide for a communal experience. Okay, now you can have comments and stuff like that turned on, but it's so funny. A lot of churches I've found, especially when it comes into the YouTube world, are scared of comments. They're scared of having to defend their faith, I guess. Maybe it's a hard thing to explain why the Bible says this. I don't know. That's between you and God. I'm just being a little bit facetious there. And a lot of them don't want people cussing and doing stuff like that on their stream. Well, grow up. It's okay. People cuss in real life, and if someone started cussing out in front of your church and was being rude and stuff like that, you would pull them aside and talk to them quietly, which you can do stuff like that with a lot of these social platforms. So just keep that in mind. Comments are okay. We want people talking. We want to be able to have an opportunity to speak into them. So YouTube is a great way to do that. And there's some people that are concerned about YouTube and children and all that sort of stuff. That stuff is being taken care of on the YouTube side. They're taking care of making sure that, if you're not 13, you don't get a bunch of, you don't see a bunch of ads, and you don't see targeted data and all that sort of stuff. A lot of that we really don't need to worry about. Just as a caveat, just make sure that your channel for churches, your YouTube channel, is listed, and if you log into it, there's a banner that says you need to go set this, is not for kids or not made for kids, which means you're not specifically making that content for children. It's not a Miss Patty Cake channel. It's not a Captain Kangaroo channel. Okay, it's a general channel, not targeting specifically kids. That's all I'm going to say about that for right now. But it's a free platform. And the most important thing, keep this in mind, it is the #2 search engine in the world. So people are going there to consume content on a regular basis. A lot of us, Justin, are you watching YouTube videos on your television at home now?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Actually, yeah. I'll pull up videos on my phone. I'll be like, "Oh, Dad, you got to see this video," and I'll just cast it to my TV.
Yep.
And then we're just watching YouTube for, you get stuck in that hole. And
Right,
you're just
sure.
watching the next video.
Yeah,
next
something
video.
else
So
is
yeah, we're actually
suggested.
watching a lot of YouTube on our TV.
Right, exactly. And a lot of people are doing that now. So that gives you automatically gives you the ability for someone to have a lean back experience without really having to jump through a lot of hoops on your end. You don't have to make an app. You don't have to set up a Roku channel. You don't have to do any of that stuff. It's all right there. Now, Justin and I can teach you how to do all that other stuff, and we probably will. But YouTube is right there in front of you, so use it. And you can turn off comments if you have to. If you're a target, if your church is a target, or your pastor is a target for just all kinds of trolling and stuff like that, you can turn that off. You can also block people from your channel, and you can also, delete comments and do stuff like that. So you can do that, but it's free and it's out there, and it has a huge audience, a built-in audience. So you can actually use it as a mission field. You can use it to reach other people. So YouTube, definitely be doing YouTube.
Yeah, 100%. And there's more that you need to do rather than just post it on YouTube, right? And we're going to talk about that later later today in this show, optimizing it so people will discover you and find you on YouTube. So that don't just throw it up there and Sunday, November 27th, 2019.
Yeah, don't
All right,
do that
done.
garbage.
No, there's more to be done. Dave, how about podcasting? Is podcasting
always
still around?
Always. Podcasting, it's so funny. Who was I listening to? I was listening to somebody important. I wish I could remember who it was. They were saying that
but they were super important.
They were really important. Actually, I think it was on the Ray Edwards show, and he was talking with a friend that podcasts. And here's the numbers are something like this. I don't have them right in front of me, but the numbers are something like this. Okay, there are currently a lot of people think, oh well, it's going to be hard to get people to listen to your podcast and do all that sort of stuff. Podcasting there's maybe 650 or 700,000 podcasts out there right now. So if you were to
over 750,000,
there you go. So if you were to pull up a list of every podcast available on the planet, 750,000. However, there are like 100 million YouTube channels or something. I mean, it's ridiculous. We are not even scratching the surface on the golden age of podcasting. You definitely need to be podcasting. Absolutely. If you ever had tapes of your sermons, if you ever had CDs of your sermons, you should be podcasting. And frankly, you should be podcasting, like 15 years ago. It is a very personal medium, very personal. I'm a spoken word kind of guy. I like audiobooks. I love talk radio, and listening to podcasts where I'm either entertained or I learn or something. It is a very personal medium. It's you and the voice on the other end in your ear. There's something psychological that happens there. So you want to be podcasting. As a pastor or as a Bible study leader, you have the opportunity to speak to that one single person while they're in their car, or while they're jogging, or while they're doing housework, or while they're working quietly in their office. You have their undivided attention as it's going into their ear. It is a huge thing. It also gives you the ability to develop a relationship with them, and it's interesting because that relationship, you develop a relationship with them on their side, if that makes sense, Justin. I don't know if that does or not. One of the things that we have built into us is this thing that identifies with other people, right? So you and I met, and when we met in person and stuff, we clicked with each other, and we're lifelong friends now. That same sort of thing happens in your head psychologically when you're reading a book, or if you cry in a movie because your favorite character dies or something like that. Inside your head, because you've become emotionally invested in the story of that character or the voice in your head or whatever, reading on the page, inside psychologically, that person is your friend, and you have a relationship with him. That's why when you're reading the Harry Potter things and Dumbledore dies, you get a tear, because you love that character. That same thing happens with a podcast. That person is speaking into your ear, and they're speaking directly to you. So you develop this relationship with them, and that is really good from our side And it's a big responsibility from our side because we're able to build relationships with people that we may not have physical contact with. So you can do that through your sermons. We can teach more intimately through a podcast. Yes, podcast.
Yeah, and podcasting is just a little bit naturally lending itself towards long form,
Absolutely.
Storytelling, education, entertainment. And so the fact that most of our sermons are going to be between 20 and 40 minutes long, it's really easy.
It's great for a commute.
It's really easy medium for people to consume your sermon rather than sitting in front of a YouTube video or even, like I got my commute, let me go find this video on YouTube and then play it, but keep my phone off to the side and unlocked unless I pay for YouTube Premium.
Right.
Podcasting is so much easier. I put a link in the chat. You can go to our website as well. We have a fantastic interview with Paul Colligan, who's like, did I pronounce the name right? Colligan?
Colligan,
he's a fantastic podcaster. He's been doing it for decades. He kind of like not only was first, but he's also one of the best. He does consulting for podcasts all over the world. We got an interview with him where he talks about how to build and sustain your podcast for your church. And just real quick, one thing that he said that kind of blew my mind and I've noticed really helps the churches that I've consulted with, stop calling it a podcast. Don't say, go listen to our sermon on your favorite podcast app. People aren't going to know what that is. You got the people that do know podcasting, but the people that you may want to consume your podcast in an audio way, just tell them, you find us on Spotify, right? They'll find your show on Spotify. Call it your sermon, whatever you want to call it. They'll find you on Spotify. When you start getting technical with it, download your podcasting app. We like Stitcher. We like Google Play. We like just go find us on Spotify. Go find our search. Put a link on your website. Make it real easy for them.
Right.
And that's how you can get more people jumping on without being too scared. So, Dave, can I take over this next one because this one's very passionate for me.
Absolutely.
Real quick. We listed it here in the show notes.
Right.
Where to put your podcast. Put your sermon. Where to publish it. iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify. You said Pandora's coming out with podcasting or something?
Yeah, Pandora. It's and I haven't checked recently to where they are and who they're doing. I know that over time, if they're not already accepting it from everybody, over time they will get to that point. What do you call it? Spotify is accepting it. I've submitted several to Spotify without any problems. You're sort of just like doing it with iTunes and Google Play and all that. You just sort of walk through the process and get notified that it's hot, and that's it. There's some requirements. You got to have your artwork and all that sort of stuff, just like with any of them. So just meet those requirements, and there you go. But the idea, and here's the difference between what I'm going to talk about with YouTube and with podcasting. You and I have adopted the thing that we are YouTube first with the stuff that we produce here because we want to grow that YouTube channel, grow the ability for it to be placed in front of other people when the things that we're talking about, whether technically or philosophically or whatever, match up with the things that other people are watching, right? Does that make sense? The algorithm puts pieces together, puts people with stuff that they're likely to watch. So we're focusing everything onto YouTube, and we want all of our video content to be first consumed on YouTube, then later consumed on other platforms after we've kind of gone over that initial rise on YouTube. With podcasting, you're hosting it from one place, so you need to list it everywhere. Your numbers on Stitcher are not really that important, other than if Stitcher is like on their website is recommending stuff. Your numbers on iTunes are really not that important, except for inside the iTunes ecosystem for getting recommended and getting new and notable and things like that. The numbers are all coagulating on the back end at the place that you host. So 10 views on Stitcher, 10 views on Pandora or whatever, Spotify, Google Play, all that sort of stuff, 10 here, 10 here, 10 here, 10 here, 10 here, all show up to be 60 views total on the back end, right? Whereas 100 views on YouTube and 25 views on Dailymotion and 30 views on Vimeo and stuff. Now you're having to gather all these sort of things, and you're not sort of juicing any one deal. I know it's a weird concept. We can always talk about that later. But I was going to tell you, be everywhere. Get listed everywhere with your podcast, as many places as possible, because they each have their own audiences, and it ensures that you're seen a lot more. Go ahead. You're muted, so go ahead and unmute real quick. Yeah.
I told you I would do that.
Yes, you were right. Self-fulfilling prophecy.
So I want to go into your website. So I think it is important to have sermons archived on
Absolutely.
your website. There are numerous tools that you can do that with. However, I'm going to lay out some of the things that you need in these tools, whether you do it yourself, you're running a WordPress or any others, or even Squarespace and Wix, and my platform will do it. You can run it as a blog and just embed the media into the blog. But even if you're using something like sermon.net, Church Hero, I'm a huge fan of, or a WordPress sermon plugin. I can't remember the name of it. Here's what you need. Number one, when you put your sermons on your website, it needs to be searchable. Okay. No one's going to scroll through a bunch of pages to find a sermon that they want to listen to. People are going to say, man, I'm having a hard time. Again, I always go to this example. I'm having a hard time with my wife. What does the Bible say about divorce? You know, they might go to YouTube. They might go to your church website. You want to make sure that it's searchable on your church website. Typically what I found is that church people will go to your church website first. They won't go to YouTube. They want to see if you have something on there. So make it searchable. And we'll talk about, titling your sermons. Don't just say September 27th, 2018. Give it a title, because you may have talked about divorce a year ago, but I want to be able to quickly find it. Number two, don't just throw videos up on your website. You want to give it some context, okay? If you can, and some of the sermon tools will do this, put a Bible verse underneath it if that's very important. Put an outline, put time markers if you want to, who's speaking, right? Because if I want to say, hey Dave, you need to listen to this guy that came to our church. Let's say Glenn Schultz, who's actually coming to my church. Okay. Let's say 2 years from now, I'm like, dude, you got to listen to his speech on parenting. I can't go back and say, when was it? January 2nd? I don't remember. If I just search parenting, or if I just search Glenn Schultz on my website, I should be able to pull it up and find it and listen to it.
Yep.
So you want to kind of, make sure the titles are good, make sure it's searchable, and then make sure that, you give some context to the sermons. Because if you just put a sermon up there, if you just put the video, I have a client right now, we're moving all his sermons over to a website that I just built him. His stuff was literally like, sermons on, it was just a hyperlink. It just said sermons on parenting, and you click it and it takes you to a SoundCloud sermon. And it was very disjointed. It was very hard to navigate. And it was just a list. Like I had to Control F to find something. There wasn't even any dates on it.
Too many hoops.
Very confusing.
Too many hoops to jump through.
Too many hoops to jump through. Very good. So make it simple, make it searchable. And if you want to do it for free, host your video on YouTube, you make a blog post and just embed that YouTube video so you can have the blog title, the blog tags, which you can then search, or the categories, whatever it's called. You can do that very easily. And then, of course, you just make a blog post. You just copy, paste the Bible verse in there, whatever else you need to.
And there's
and of course, the author is the pastor.
There's some advanced arguments and stuff that you can put in YouTube so that, like the little play bar doesn't show up and the colors, are, you don't see the YouTube logo, little things like that. There's things you can do to customize to get that more aesthetic thing, including not having recommended videos showing up, because those are going to be specific to the person watching it. So if they're watching a whole bunch of Parks and Rec, bloopers or Dave Chappelle clips or something like that, they may kind of be, they're not in the Dave Chappelle zone, and here they are watching a preaching thing, and then things that are recommended, they're like, why is the church recommending Dave Chappelle to me? They get confused and stuff. So you can turn that stuff off. So there's ways to do that.
I got a phone call to the church about that. A lady watched our YouTube video and was like, but I think she actually watched it on YouTube, because we always turn it off on our website. And she was like, you may want to look at this because it's recommending some bikini things, some bikini girls or something. And I said, oh yeah, I had to explain to our receptionist. And I was like, yeah, there's nothing I can do about that. Someone in their house is watching bikini videos or something.
Probably their 13-year-old son.
Yeah, you got to turn that off when you put it on your website. So again, we're talking about, Dave used the word ubiquity, which I think we also got from Paul as well. You want to be on YouTube, you want to be on our podcast, but you also want to have an archive on your website.
Absolutely.
So wherever people go, they can find you. It's also another hoop to jump through if I go to your website and it says, go to YouTube. And then I go to YouTube and I got to find something there. Just have an archive on your website. Next, we're going to spend a little bit of time on social media.
Yeah.
We're talking about Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Snapchat, whatever else. There's a couple rules that we want to follow there. Dave, what's the first rule?
The very first rule is to go where your people are. So that's kind of the low-hanging fruit. If you're ready to start developing another audience, then go where you want and start trying to develop an audience there. But just you need to be where your people are, and most of the people in your church are going to be on Facebook. It's more the rule that everybody's on Facebook than the exception now. In fact, I had a guy. It's so funny. I had a guy at our church who teaches a bunch of like Hebrew stuff. And he said, "Hey, I want to start a channel on YouTube and stuff, and I need some help." I said, "Okay, great. Look, friend me on Facebook, and I'm going to add you to our church media hacks group so that you can." Well, I'm not on Facebook. Okay, step number one. You're stepping into this world, so you need to be on social. You're not making a DVD series that you're going to sell at Walmart. You've got to get into this and just make it a part of it. Well, I don't want to be on Facebook. Okay, well then you're wasting your time. You want to make a DVD series and we can try to sell it in the bookstore? That's just the reality of the situation. People are on social. You want to talk to an audience. You want to talk to people. You need to be where they are. So I tell everyone, church-wise, they need to focus on Facebook first, and a close second to that would be Instagram, because it is owned by Facebook, and it's very, very popular. People love scrolling through and seeing pictures and little video clips and stuff like that, and Instagram is huge.
Yeah, so one mistake that we see a lot is people on social media, they use it as a platform to broadcast and announce and hey, look at us, look at everything we're doing. So number one, and I believe Seth just put this out, or
did yesterday,
our friend Seth Muse, you need to follow the 80-20 rule, which is I do 1 out of every 7. 80-20 rule, which is 80% needs to be edutainment, so it needs to be teaching something, or it needs to be providing some kind of entertainment value. Now that doesn't mean that you're just doing memes on your church page, but you're not just saying, hey, watch a sermon, watch a sermon, watch a sermon, watch a sermon,
or come to this event, come to this event.
Yeah, come to this event. It needs to flow a little bit. And so what I always say, and actually if Adam's still watching it, he gave me this idea where he was talking about if you friend him on Facebook and your most recent posts are all about It Works or essential oils or some other MLM, he's immediately going to unfriend you, or he won't even friend you in the first place. Which kind of gave me the idea, when I go to a church Facebook page, I'm judging you based on your most recent 5 posts.
Right.
And if your most recent 5 posts are just hour-long video, picture of a flyer graphic inviting me to your potluck, and then sermon video, there's not a lot there for me, right? So you want to be valuable, and being valuable,
you're staring
means,
at a bulletin board.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, being valuable means that you're giving me something and not asking for anything in return. So you're either encouraging me, you're giving me some advice, you're asking me a question, that's something I'm passionate about, you're telling me something about going on in the community. This is all a formula that I use that I'm not going to share here, but we're going to share next year for CTA. Then I see that this is something that I might want to be a part of, or I might want to check out. And another part of that is going to be posting. I'm jumping a little bit here, Dave. Is going to be posting in the way that the platform
wants,
right?
Yeah, absolutely. Wants, they have their own. They have their own.
Want to consume it on the platform,
right? They have their own thing.
You're not gonna post an hour-long video on Instagram. However, you also should not post 5 60-second videos in a row in one post. People just don't watch Instagram that way.
Right.
So you're gonna have to figure that out, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. So first and foremost, be where the people are, but also be valuable.
And
now,
just real quick, just about that, because we see so many churches that are basically using their Facebook page as a bulletin board. That's, you've got to remember, here's the reality of the situation. Justin and I are right about this. Okay, so you can think that we're wrong, but you're wrong. It is not a public bulletin board. Okay, social media has the word social in it on purpose, because every single one of the companies that put their social media platforms together wanted people to come together and engage around topics and common interests and things like that. It's a water cooler. Okay, so you don't walk up to the coffee pot in Sunday school and start handing out flyers to people, do you? No, you would be a jerk. Hey, come to my grand opening, or come to our thing. You don't do stuff like that. You don't do that stuff at work. People are going to be like, oh, crap, here comes the Flyer King. You're not going to be doing that. You're going to go over there and talk about, last night's Reno 911 or whatever it is that you're watching, last night's NCIS, whatever. And you're going to be talking about all those sort of things. You're going to be talking about topical stuff. You're going to be being silly. You're going to be doing stuff like that. And that's what social media is for, because that is the church needs to do that as well. Be relevant, okay? Post articles about things that are relevant to the people. Share encouragement, like he says. Share. You and I, Justin, always talk about that they need to be showcasing the culture of their church. So, like, the pastor needs to be doing a live stream while he's walking into the building, or while they're doing something, they're working in the hallway, the guy's buffing the floors or something. Check this out. I mean, just whatever. These little day in the life kind of things. That's what people respond to. If you'll notice, it's happening on everyone else's channels, everyone else's profiles, everyone else's pages. They're doing it. We need to do the same.
Yeah, 100%. So that's a little bit outside of the scope of today, but what we're talking about is you need to, when you're on social media, you need to post the way the social media platform wants you to post a video. We're talking about videos, right? So you're going to post a 60-second video clip on Instagram. You can post a 10-hour video on Facebook, but no one's going to sit there and watch it. You can post a 45-minute sermon video on Facebook, but if you look at your other 45-minute sermons, you get a huge drop off after about 3 seconds. Okay, so people aren't going to sit there and watch that. You can live stream to it, that's fine. But if you're talking about midweek engagement and putting stuff up on social the way people want to consume it, no one's going to be scrolling through social on a Friday night and be like, oh, 45-minute sermon, let's go, right? But they will sit there and watch a sermon clip, okay? Especially if it's a funny story, if you tag it right. You won't believe what pastor's daughter did at the feed store last Saturday, right? And then I'm going to sit there and watch a 30-second, 60-second, 90-second video. Adam, and this isn't just for Facebook. You can also put your sermon on YouTube and then cut out clips. That's what a lot of these news agencies will do. They'll put a 40-minute podcast show or news report, and then they'll clip it up also on YouTube, because that's more ways that it can get discovered. So Adam actually put it in the comments here, 4 minutes and 20 seconds is the average video length on YouTube. It's average because that's what people are watching. On Facebook, we're looking at 90 seconds. On Instagram, you're looking at 15 to 45 seconds. Even my new favorite platform, TikTok, you can put a 60-second video up there, but most people stop watching after 15. So most videos you find on TikTok are going to be 15 seconds, even though you can go longer. So you really want to look at how people are watching your videos and make videos that way. So what we recommend doing is when you're posting on Facebook, if you're posting on your private Facebook page, it's internal. You could probably go longer because you know those people are dedicated. But if you're posting publicly or on Instagram where you have that discoverability, make it shorter, make it entertaining, make it valuable. No one wants to get beat in the head with the gospel hammer on Facebook when they're just looking to escape during their lunch break.
Right. Okay.
You want to share those stories, share those truths, share those encouragements. You can follow Elevation Church on Facebook. They're really good about that. Whatever you think about their pastor, you can just put that aside and watch how they share those clips. They're engaging. They get lots of engagement. They get lots of visibility because Facebook knows people want to see this video. And so they'll do that. So we recommend clipping your sermons down. Okay. We have some training in the CTA Insiders portal where actually I had a sermon and I was like, Dave, how do I clip this down and make it look good rather than just a guy walking on a stage? We talked about, coloring it, clipping it down into a square format that people want on Facebook. Sorry, guys. I know a lot of us techies like to widescreen and all that stuff. Most people will sit here like this. And if it's not square, you're going to lose their attention faster. It drives me nuts. I send my wife a YouTube video and she watches it like this. Well, and does not turn her phone sideways, and that's most people that we're trying to reach.
Because of the square, because of the way you have a greater chance of catching their attention because it is physically taking up much more of the real estate on the screen. When it comes on, everything that you see is just that one video until your thumb scrolls past it. So, match the platform.
Match the platform. So there are ways that you can do that, and we cover in CTA Insiders. But also, real quick, if you don't want to do it yourself, but this is so important, and this show helps you understand, like, man, we got to start speaking the language on the platform. Check out sermonclipper.com. They will take your whole sermon. You just send them a sermon, and they'll give you clips formatted for Facebook and Instagram and stories and all this stuff. They'll go through and you know, actually clip it and edit it for you. So all you have to do is post it. So if you don't have the time, if you're like, I know I want to do this, but I can't do it myself, I live for you guys, okay? And Sermon Clipper is going to do that for you. Plus, when you use the promo code HACKERS, you get 10% off. So you can do it yourself, or you can have Sermon Clipper do it, but it has to be done because, again, aside from a live stream on a Sunday morning, no one's going to stop Tuesday after work to watch a 40-minute sermon, but they will watch a 45-second clip, get that encouragement, get that value, feel better, and you get the benefit of you encourage someone, you gave them a peek at Jesus, and you encourage them and spoke into their lives on Tuesday afternoon, and the way that they wanted to, and they're going to pay that much more attention next time you show up, and they may even like, let's listen to the full sermon, or let's go visit the church. Like, this is huge. Unfortunately, we have to move on because we wanted to get to the information here about what I call get the click.
Yes.
Right? It's not enough just to have the video somewhere, hosted somewhere, YouTube, podcast.
Right.
I'm not going to go to a podcast and listen to Pastor Joe talks about you know, what the Bible says about this. Like, that's boring. But when you optimize it, and we're going to talk about getting the click, people will more naturally want to, even though the content's the same, they're going to be more curious to actually click into it. So number one, when you're on social media and especially on YouTube, you want to start with the thumbnail.
Right.
Now,
definitely.
Dave, that's really backwards, right? Because normally
It is.
we might just get the title of the sermon maybe, and then we have the sermon, and then what do we do from there? We post a screenshot of the pastor on stage, all whited out and washed out.
This is
what can we do to make a better thumbnail for our sermons?
Well, it's a lot easier when you're making content directly for, you know, I'm making a YouTube video about this topic. You know, it's a lot easier when you're dealing with sermons. There's a sermon series, and so we're going through one called Miraculous Births right now, and it is it's different births and promises in the Bible, different people that are kind of waypoints along the timeline until we get to Christ's birth, right? So, you know, we have a sermon design package that the pastor put together that has has branding elements to it and all this kind of stuff. And it's great when you're looking at it on the screen as the service is starting. It's wonderful for the live type thing like that. It is ridiculously boring because it's a color and it's pretty font. And it is useless as a thumbnail. You got to be a little creative with stuff like that if you want to get their attention, okay? Like I said, there's like 100 million channels on YouTube, and there are billions and billions of videos that are out there. So, and the YouTube algorithm is suggesting to you, the whole goal of YouTube is for you, the viewer, to see something that you want to see. And that let's give him the most relevant video for, I'm not kidding, this time of day, this location, because he's in Texas, which means certain things. He likes to watch these types of videos. She is interested in these topics. She is engaged with this advertiser, which means she likes this. So this person talks about this a lot more. Those sort of things happen. So as you're scrolling through YouTube, the first thing that you're going to see that they're going to put in front of you are things that are of interest to you. They're also going to try other things because you like this, chances are you might like this. You know, because you like to watch sermon videos, maybe you'll like this guy. So eventually, as you're scrolling through, there's just all kinds of images going, and something has to grab your attention. If it's going to be something that's text-based, at least it needs to stand out, you know. And it may be that you take your thing. We've got a friend, Brian Johnson, that's a YouTuber. One of the things that he did was he stopped doing his his YouTube thumbnails a picture of him pointing to a graphic or pointing to the title or doing something like that, which a lot of people do. And he just started having like a red background and white lettering with a shadow, and it's like 2 words. And when you're looking in a sea of smiley faces and you see that gets, maybe you need to do that. Maybe you need to take the pastor's, the sermon thing, and come up with a different font, come up with a different background or something. And it doesn't have to be on brand with your church. Okay, it really doesn't, because this is YouTube and you want people to engage with it. So your brand is important to a degree, but not really, because no one cares about your brand. They just care about the content. So you have to there's a whole thing like that, but you got to stop that click, and you got to come up with a title as well that is going to do it. It's not going to be, for us, where were we doing? We were doing Joshua. No, who was it whose brothers threw them in the well?
Yeah, Joshua.
Joshua, right. So it was Joshua and the miracle of forgiveness, because he forgave his brothers. So Joshua and the miracle of forgiveness, maybe that title works, maybe not. See if you can take that subject and try to find something that's going to work a little bit better that will catch people's attention. You can put the title of the sermon later in the thing, but maybe something that's going to be a little more, dropped in, abandoned, forgotten, and now forgiven. Something like that. Something that's just going to trigger people a little bit to click on it. There's a whole psychology beyond that, and I'm still trying to figure it out, because, frankly, for our church, that is one of the things I'm having the hardest time with. So, but the more you can get people to engage, and that's another reason why Justin and I talk about doing things beyond just your sermons and your sermon series on YouTube, going deeper, building content that people want to consume, answering those questions. If you are going to have, the pastor or somebody talking about biblical view of marriage, you do it in a way that speaks to the questions that the culture is asking about those. So it's a whole nother mindset on that. But the net is you need to provide a visual experience that's going to grab their attention. Otherwise, they're just going to scroll right through it.
Yeah, 100%. And along the same lines, your sermon title is also going to get people to stop scrolling. Now, and this also goes with your description that you put on social media. So if you do pull that 60-second clip, then you're gonna put it on Facebook or Instagram. You need a catchy description to go along with that. And one trick that I do is, first of all, it's not going to be your sermon title, and it's not going to be the date. Okay,
right.
So people are not going
that.
to stop the scroll. We always talk about stopping the scroll or getting attention. No one's going to stop for June 21st sermon, or no one's going to stop even for the sermon title, Upside Down Living, which is an actual sermon title. They will, however, stop if you say like, are we the ones living upside down? Are you living upside down? Jesus versus you, right? Like, whoa, what is that?
Exactly.
I was actually digging through some data here. Last summer, I did a lot of testing, and I, without permission, but thankfully it worked out. I just changed sermon titles for our sermon archives, and you will not believe this. So a couple things I did. I don't remember the original titles, but here's some of the ones I came up with. Complaining to God, okay? Feelings, hot buttons, and scripture. Grace is not a license for laziness. I remember that one. The sermon title was literally like, what is the Bible? What is grace actually? Which isn't a bad title, but grace is not a license for laziness is a pretty good one. But the number one summer 2018 sermon title was like the number one watched or on the website is called Pfft. That's the title I put, PFFT. Nice. And it was all about, going to God. Like God tells you something and you go, whatever. It was, that sermon was like listening to God or how to listen to God. I just called it, and it was the number one listened sermon that summer.
That's awesome.
So yeah, you can't just use the pastor's sermon title. It works in church because it's a captured audience. But when you're amongst hundreds of other videos competing for attention, you need to have something that's worth clicking on.
Right.
So think of the thing that I do is I think of what is the one thing that I want people to walk away knowing. Mm-hmm. Okay. And I'll even ask the pastor this, like right before service. Hey, pastor, real quick, what's the one thing you want people to know when they walk out? We want them to know that God's trying to talk to them and they need to read the Bible to figure out if it's God telling him to do something or something else. Okay, so how can I flip that into a title or maybe even a catchy question?
Right.
So I might call it God's Whispers versus the Rest of the World, or Can You Hear Me?
Right.
Dash God, right?
Right.
Something like that. Where people will see that and get kind of curious.
I
And
thought it
say,
was
what is
God,
this
but it
about?
was me.
So if you combine that with a 90-second clip on Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
that is just naturally people will stop for 90 seconds and watch. You're just doubling down on getting people to watch. You're doubling down on getting that click. And then the last thing is just to upload natively. Don't put a YouTube link on Facebook.
No.
Don't put a graphic on Instagram that says watch our full sermon over on our website, right? Pull a clip. Get that curiosity, and then at the end of the clip you can say watch the full sermon with the link in our bio or something like that. Don't and then of course don't put 5 60-second videos together on Instagram. People just aren't going to stop and watch that. It's too much work. So when you want to get the clip, you want to optimize it. And how do you optimize it? You figure out what people want to see. And people at my last church, when I did those sermon titles, they were attracted a little bit to the salacious, a little bit to the what did he say? Our number one same pastor or same preacher, number one video for him was something about like you're not going to go to the pearly gates waving the American flag. Okay, something like that. Well, it was very patriotic time, and we said the American flag basically doesn't save you. Okay, so get your priorities straight.
Right.
That was huge, and for us, and people stopped and they watched those catchy things like that. Your church might be different. It's going to take some experimentation, but that's what optimization is. And by the way, you do you have some sermon titles, you got some thumbnails that you want to run by us. Church Media Hacks group on Facebook, or you can go to churchmediahacks.com, post them in there. You're going to get lots of feedback from people that have been there, done that, seen what works.
Yep.
And we'll help you kind of optimize it as you go. And of course, if you want to talk with me and Dave directly, you got CTA Insiders. We can do that for you. churchtrainingacademy.com/join.
Yep.
And you pretty much got us 24/7 to give you feedback and help you improve based on your unique circumstances. I got to go, guys. Thank you guys for watching. If this was valuable, hit the like button. But Dave's going to stay here and keep going. But I got to take off. So see you guys. Thank you.
Okay, so one thing that I want you guys to consider, and this is something that I talk about from time to time, and it's a much bigger picture thing. I remember, did you guys, and tell me if you did or not in the comments, did you guys ever read that Left Behind series? The one that Ben LaHaye was a guy I went to college with. Jerry Jenkins and Lahane, whatever his name is, about the rapture, life after the rapture. So, life's going along great, and then all of a sudden, boom, half the population is gone. Planes are falling out of the air. It's turmoil, pandemonium, all this sort of stuff. The Antichrist is rising. Excuse me. And there's a bunch of people that have not received Christ and are left behind. And now, there's pockets of them that are going, oh my gosh, they were right. Now what do we do? So this idea popped into my head because they did it in the book, kind of. They were, literary vehicles that they had in the book. They created a network that was kind of an underground network where new Christians, and there's no Holy Spirit during that time, so they're kind of going on intuition and learning from each other, and they needed to learn and have resources and do stuff like that, and they would communicate through this network. They would, they did a bunch of strategic stuff that they were doing. Anyway, the idea popped into my head about that time in the late 90s when I was reading this, that, as this internet is growing, eventually, at some point, there will be a rapture. We don't know how far into the tribulation that's going to get, but we know it's all coming. And so I was just thinking, we've got this internet. What if Christendom, Christianity, churches, what if we published all of our stuff and put it online so that, YouTube will probably still be here, or whatever incarnation of something like that is, after we're gone. So if we're seeding it with Christian teaching and Christian doctrine, then it will be here from our lips for the ones that are left behind. For as long as those pieces of infrastructure stay available. So I would just encourage you that if you're not, if you're like our church, I mean, I'm not kidding, there's crates and crates of video cassettes and of audio tapes, years and years, going back to the early 70s, of stuff. So we have this archive of teaching and all that, but it's in a form that no one can really grab onto. So right now, if you're not publishing your stuff, do publish it. You may even want, and I haven't even really talked about this, but there's a place called archive.org, which is the Internet Archive. It's a project that is supported through donations, and it's basically they go and scrape websites. They make copies of the information on websites and kind of have it. One of their little things is an internet time machine or a Wayback Machine, whatever they call it, where you can go and they'll take little snapshots of various websites from all around. I found a website that I did back in 2005 or 2003 for a client of mine that sold grandfather clocks, and look, there's some of it right there, but you can go, like right now, if you just went to archive.org and started searching for, I don't know, the Jack Benny Show or something, you'd find a whole bunch of old public domain radio show archives or television show archives and stuff like that. So you can put your stuff there. You can upload your sermons there so that it's kind of like sticking it in the Library of Congress, Anyway, just things that have popped into my head over time. That's one of the reasons why I think it's really important that we do have video and we do have audio of our services, our sermons, because we are using these. We have the benefit of having this teaching in front of us every time. There will come a point where people may not be able to have it. And I mean, I haven't even talked about how important it is for people in other countries where this stuff is suppressed, where Christianity is suppressed. There's a reason that things like virtual private networks, VPNs, exist, and a lot of it is so that people in other countries can still gather information, get information, without their government tracking them doing it. There's a lot going on out there beyond the borders of the United States, and we have a lot of freedoms here, and we have a lot of information here at our fingertips. I think we owe it to other people on the planet and the people that are going to come after us to have some of this here. So, if you haven't thought much bigger picture beyond we're just doing our sermons and stuff, think about it. And if for nothing else, just so that there's a big archive. If this has been helpful, then leave a comment. And if you want to go a little bit deeper, then check one of these videos over here. That one, that's a good one. This one's probably a little bit better. But anyway,